to stay. And so if you think about how can I get through these various challenges, how can I put things in place that are going to work effectively for me, that's that's the right attitude I think to have. Now, be realistic in your thinking about outsourcing. It might be cheaper than doing projects in-house. Might be. Well, not necessarily will be. Might be if it's managed properly. But it will be harder. It will be more complex, and it will be more risky. So you do have to think about these elements of risk. And because testing is a form of risk management, it's I think a good idea to think about in your work, you're a tester on an outsourced project, to how to use the testing effectively to manage some of the risks that will arise, both the project risks and the product risks, quality risks. Okay, so here is some information on how to contact us. I'll leave that up here while we go through the Q&A session here in a minute. We've reached the end of the presentation, so I'm happy now to take questions for the next, we got here up to 25 minutes or so. And you'll notice that there is on your screen a facility for asking questions, and I will go through those here. Let me get this a little bigger. Let's see. Let me get through the questions here. So let's see. We got a question on please elaborate more on V model versus Agile, and how that affects the testing and outsourced project. Again, as I mentioned, the people who are defining how Agile is supposed to work are still grappling with this themselves. We're starting to see some people talking about this, but I think there are a number of challenges there because of the Agile emphasis on things like face-to-face communication and reducing the amount of documentation and continuous integration and so forth. The frequency of the touch points and the course correction that I mentioned before is something that is going to become a pretty big issue. I think basically what you're going to have to do is look at the logistics of that very carefully. And it's particularly time zone issues. If somebody's going to say, oh, well, we'll just have the outsourcers participate in our Scrum meeting, or, if we have a daily Scrum, well, ask yourself, what time of the day are you going to have that? We have one client that they have a weekly test team meeting, virtual test team meeting. Because of where the outsourced test team is located, they do this at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's a real hassle for a lot of people who are not exactly morning people. And so there's a certain amount of dissatisfaction within this organization about the outsourcing of the testing, in part just because of the inconvenience that this poses on them once a week. Let's see. I have a question from Lucian here. You did not mention the scenario where development is outsourced and system testing is in-house. Do you see some pros and cons there? That's a good question. Certainly, if you think back on the V model that I showed earlier, you could replace the outsourced development outsourced test arms, if you will, with, or pieces, activities, with the in-house test team, I'm trying to find that diagram here while we're, yeah, this piece here. So if you look at the what I indicated as being done by an outsourced test organization, you could also replace that with an in-house system test team, right? The pros of that would be you get a lot of the same advantages that you get from having an outsourced test organization doing it, the independence of Outlook and so forth. The other thing that you would, of course, get from that is a reduction in some of the logistics of organizing that integration and or system testing that's done, because it would be done in-house, so the logistics there would be simpler. But of course, you still have to have a communication facility between the in-house team and the outsourced development organization. So, and that's not to completely go away. There are some risks, and I've seen this happen, including even in situations where there were additional outsourced test teams involved, where you can get some firestorms that can break out between the in-house test team and the outsourced development organization, particularly if there's some amount of tension there between them. Now that could, of course, that could happen anyway, but does seem to be more prevalent at an individual contributor level than perhaps at the manager level. So something to watch for, I guess. I'd say look out if you're going to try that. Look out for situations where you think there will be political firestorms that might evolve. But otherwise, I would say, if I had to say, would it be better for us to do what's indicated on this slide as the outsourced test organization's work, or would it be better to let the outsourced development organization do it? I'd say, well, hands down, you continue to own it yourself, because injecting independent testing, whether from an outside test provider or from your own internal resources, is going to be advantageous. Okay, I have a question from Stinio here. How do we manage a complex test environment for systems of systems like banking in outsourced testing? And this is a real multi-dimensional challenge, without a doubt. Now, obviously, one way to do this is that you provide the test environment, and you basically allow the outsourced testing organization and possibly also the outsourced development organization to have access to that through a VPN. Now, that can work, and we've certainly seen that work with a lot of clients. In some cases, if there are infrastructure problems that create issues with reliability of getting VPN'd in, then that can create a larger set of efficiency issues that could very well occur. The other thing that you got to think about, as I mentioned before, is this issue of data and anonymization of data. Now, time would not allow a complete discussion of that. Certainly planning on having some sort of webinar on that at some point or another, because this is becoming an ever-increasing issue for our clients. But the short version is that when you've got data that has private information in it and it's getting sent around the world, people tend to get pretty concerned about that. And so the idea of anonymizing the data comes up, and there are some tools now that are emerging that will do the anonymization. But when you start talking about systems of systems, such as what you would have in a bank, you just start to run into some real problems with that, because what you'll have is 2, 5, 10, 20 different data repositories that are shared across 50, 100 applications, and they have data that's related. So, John Brown and information associated with John Brown, a particular person who's a customer of the bank, could be in all of these different disparate data stores. And if the anonymization tool changes John Brown to be Dorothy Smith in one of these repositories, but to be